What if the people who broke you were chosen by your soul before you were even born? It sounds impossible, even unfair. But what if the most painful, beautiful, and inexplicable relationships in your life were not random? What if those intense connections, that sudden sense of knowing someone, the heartbreaks that cracked you wide open, were all written into your life long before you took your first breath? You were told that life is a series of coincidences, that people come and go by chance. But the truth runs deeper. Beneath the surface of your everyday reality lies a spiritual contract, an agreement made before you arrived here. You chose this, not from the ego, but from the soul. And the people who have had the greatest impact on you are not accidents, they are assignments. This is not chaos, it is design. And the sooner you see the pattern, the sooner you will understand why your soul brought them onto your path. From the moment you were old enough to ask questions, the world gave you answers rooted in chance. People come into your life, they say, and people leave. Sometimes they love you. Sometimes they hurt you. It's all just part of the human experience, random, unpredictable, and without deeper meaning. You were taught to believe that relationships are built by accident, dictated by geography, timing, or sheer coincidence. But what if that's the first lie? What if those so-called coincidences were never random at all? Think about the people who left a permanent mark on your soul, the ones who made you feel like you had known them forever, even if you had just met. The ones who awakened something deep inside you. Love, pain, purpose. These people didn't just show up. They were placed strategically, intentionally, long before this life even began. Because somewhere beyond the physical plane, your soul made an agreement. An agreement to meet certain people at certain times to trigger certain lessons. Not because the universe wanted you to suffer, but because your soul wanted to evolve. It is a difficult truth to accept that heartbreak, betrayal, and even abandonment might have been part of your spiritual curriculum. This challenges the mind because the mind wants to blame, to rationalize, to make someone the villain. But the soul sees things differently. The soul is not looking for comfort. It is looking for growth. And sometimes, the deepest growth comes from the most painful experiences. That is why soul contracts are rarely easy. They are written not for pleasure, but for transformation. Most people will never see this. They will continue to call it bad luck, coincidence, karma. They do not understand. They will keep replaying the same stories, meeting the same people in different faces, and wondering why life feels like a loop. But you, if you are here, if you are listening, you are already remembering. You are beginning to sense that there is a deeper layer to all of this. That your life and the people in it have always been connected by something invisible and ancient, a pattern, a plan. Once you start to question the idea of randomness, you begin to see everything differently. That friend you couldn't shake, even after years of silence. That lover who destroyed you only to become the catalyst for your awakening. That stranger who said something so specific, so perfectly timed, that it completely changed your direction. These are not random events. They are signals. And when you become aware of them, they multiply. You start to see the invisible threads connecting your past, present, and future. You begin to realize that your soul is not just living a life, it is fulfilling a design. And this design did not begin on the day you were born. It began long before, in a space that does not obey time or logic. In that place, your soul reviewed past lifetimes, unresolved karmas, and unlearned lessons, and said, I am ready to try again. You did not come here to be comfortable. You came here to remember. And soul contracts are the fastest way to wake you up. They push your buttons. They test your boundaries. They force you to look at yourself in ways that nothing else can. That is why certain people trigger you like no one else. That is why some relationships feel cosmic, chaotic, or karmic, because they are. They were written into your story not to break you, but to bring you back to yourself. They show up when you are ready, whether you know it or not. And if you have ever asked, why did this happen to me? Or, why can't I let this person go? This is your answer. You are in a soul contract. And the moment you realize that, the contract begins to change because awareness dissolves repetition. When you know it's a contract, you stop blaming and start learning. You stop reacting and start observing. And that shift from victim to witness is the first step toward completion. Not all contracts are meant to last a lifetime. Some are meant to last just long enough to crack you open. The question is, will you recognize them when they come? Before you took your first breath, before your body was formed, before your name was spoken by anyone on earth, your soul was already in motion, not drifting aimlessly, but choosing, mapping, designing. It stood at the threshold between worlds, with full awareness of what this life would bring. The joy, the betrayal, the miracles, the pain. And it said yes, not to the comfort of certainty, but to the chaos of growth, because evolution does not happen in perfection. It happens in contrast. You did not come here empty-handed. You came with a plan, and part of that plan was who you would meet. Souls you have known for lifetimes, souls with whom you have danced before through love, war, grief, and creation. Some who saved you, some you have hurt, some who swore they would find you again. And so you gathered with them before this life and made a promise, a soul contract. I will be your mirror if you will be mine. I will help you remember if you will help me awaken. Soul contracts are not vague or symbolic. They are detailed, specific, intimate. They are bound not by logic, but by purpose. Some are created to help you clear karmic debts carried over from other lifetimes. Others are written to teach you soul-defining lessons: self-worth, forgiveness, trust, boundaries. Some contracts are easy and sweet, filled with laughter and light, but many are not. The most profound contracts often come wrapped in heartbreak, tension, or endings. And yet, even the pain is purposeful, because your soul never chooses suffering without reason. It chooses it as a catalyst. Imagine being in that sacred space before incarnation, reviewing all the threads of your past lives, the regrets, the cycles, the patterns you promised to end. And then, in that state of total clarity, deciding, I will come back with this person, and together we will face this wound. Together we will try again, even if it hurts, even if we forget. That is the part that is most difficult to grasp from this side of the veil that we agreed to forget. We knew we would enter this world with amnesia, unsure why we were drawn to certain people or why some bonds would feel like home and war at the same time. We knew we would meet them again, feel the soul's pull, and wonder why everything felt so familiar. But the forgetting is also part of the contract, because it is in the remembering that we evolve. It is in the moment we stop asking, why me, and start asking, what am I here to learn from this? That the real transformation begins. And every soul contract you have ever made is pulling you toward that exact point. Some people in your life are what you might call part of your soul group. These are souls with whom you reincarnate repeatedly across different lives and roles. In one life, they are your mother. In another, your enemy. In this one, maybe your lover or best friend, but the dynamic changes, the purpose does not. Together, you take on roles that create friction or connection, depending on what each of you needs to grow. It is not personal, it is spiritual. That is why some people can hurt you deeply and still feel strangely familiar because their soul is familiar. You have been through this before. And then there are the short contracts, the ones that seem fleeting but leave you altered. A stranger you meet once but cannot forget. A fleeting romance that shifts your entire self-concept. Even someone who comes into your life just long enough to guide you through a crisis and then disappears. These contracts are no less significant. They are surgical, designed to plant seeds, redirect your path, or wake you up at a crucial crossroads. And when their work is done, they move on. Not because they did not care, but because the contract was complete. We often think that spiritual agreements should feel peaceful. But peace is not the soul's highest goal. Awakening is. And awakening does not always come through gentle whispers. Sometimes it comes through collapse, through confrontation, through endings that tear your identity apart so that something real can grow in its place. Soul contracts often break the ego to reveal the soul beneath it. But even with all this, it is important to remember something. Just because a contract was made does not mean it must last forever. Contracts are meant to be honored, not endured. And once the lesson is integrated, once the mirror has done its job, the agreement can be released with gratitude, with love, with the understanding that what was once written can be rewritten through awareness. Because no matter how it began, every contract gives you a choice, and that choice, once conscious, becomes your power. There are moments in life that feel like echoes. You lock eyes with someone you have never met, and something inside you stirs, like a memory without context. No history, no explanation. Just a deep, unshakable feeling. I know you, but how? There is no logical reason for it. You have never spoken. They were not in your childhood. You do not share a past. And yet, something about their presence disarms you, calms you, pulls you in, or even unnerves you. That feeling, that strange, instantaneous familiarity, is one of the most undeniable signs that a soul contract is in play. The mind searches for reasons. Maybe they remind me of someone. Maybe it's just a coincidence. But the soul does not need logic. It remembers what the mind forgets. It recognizes frequency, energy, presence. When two souls with a contract come into proximity, it activates a kind of silent code between them. You may feel it as comfort. You may feel it as intensity. Sometimes you feel it as resistance, but it is always unmistakable. This is why some people feel like a home you have never lived in. You are drawn to them, even if nothing on the surface makes sense. There is a magnetic pull, subtle or overwhelming, that goes beyond attraction or interest. You may not even like them in a conventional sense, but you cannot ignore the way your soul responds. Your guard drops, or your emotions rise. You are not in control of it. And that is the point. Because these soul encounters are not here to confirm what you already know. They are here to awaken what you have forgotten. Sometimes the recognition is mutual. You both feel it. You talk for hours as if you have known each other for a lifetime. You finish each other's sentences. Your connection bypasses small talk and dives straight into the deep end. You feel safe being vulnerable. You open up without understanding why. It is as if time speeds up and slows down around them. There is an invisible current pulling you into a moment that feels too significant to be new. At other times, the recognition is one-sided. You feel something profound, but the other person seems detached or unaware. This does not invalidate the contract. It simply means that your awareness is activating first. Not all soul contracts are designed to blossom at the same time for both people. Sometimes you are meant to feel it before they do. Sometimes they awaken after you have already moved on. It does not make the connection less real. It simply means the contract is unfolding in the exact way it was meant to. This kind of recognition does not always happen with romantic partners. It could be a teacher, a stranger, or even someone you meet in passing but who leaves a lasting impact. Their energy sticks to you. Their presence lingers. Days, weeks, or even years later, they still cross your mind without warning. This is not random. It is a spiritual breadcrumb, a signature left by the soul to remind you. This person was meant to wake something up in you. There is also the dream connection. You meet someone in waking life and realize you have seen them before. But in your dreams, perhaps even long before meeting them, you brushed it off as imagination, but now you are not so sure. Soul contracts often appear in the dream space before they manifest physically. Because the soul always moves ahead of the body, and sometimes it sends whispers before it sends people. You might notice synchronicities begin to swirl around this person, repeating numbers, symbols, songs. You hear their name unexpectedly. You run into them in places that seem unlikely. You feel as if the universe is gently tapping you on the shoulder, saying, "Pay attention." Because these soul connections are never background noise. They come to the foreground of your awareness and ask questions that your rational mind is not ready to answer. But recognizing someone on a soul level does not always mean they are meant to stay. That is one of the hardest truths to accept. Just because a soul feels familiar does not mean they have come to walk your whole path with you. Sometimes they are here to deliver a single message, to change your direction, to teach you something in a way no one else could. Their role in your story may be powerful and temporary. Still, that familiarity you felt, that moment that made no sense but shook something awake in you, was real and it was sacred. These are the soul contracts that challenge our understanding of time, love, and identity. They do not fit the stories we have been told about how connection is supposed to work. They do not arrive logically, but they arrive precisely when they are meant to. And when they do, you remember, not in your mind, but in your soul, that nothing about this meeting is accidental. Not every soul contract feels like love. Some feel like war. They arrive as chaos, confusion, heartbreak. They enter your life like a storm, rearranging everything. And yet, despite the damage, you are never quite the same afterward, in ways you cannot deny. These are the contracts that hurt but also heal. The ones that push you deeper into yourself, whether you are ready or not, and they often come disguised as pain. We have been conditioned to believe that meaningful relationships should feel peaceful, supportive, and consistent. But soul contracts do not follow that script. Some are designed to disrupt, to agitate, to peel back every layer of who you thought you were until all that is left is the truth. Because the soul does not evolve through ease. It evolves through fire. And sometimes the people who light that fire were sent for that very reason. You have met them. The person who triggered every insecurity you have ever hidden. The one who mirrored your wounds back to you with such intensity that it felt like an attack. The relationship that kept you awake at night, unraveling the dynamic that forced you to confront the parts of yourself you never wanted to see. This is no accident. These people are not here to destroy you. They are here to destroy your illusions. They challenge the false self you built to survive. And in doing so, they call forth the version of you that was buried beneath it. Soul contracts that arrive in the form of pain often carry the deepest lessons. They teach you to set boundaries, to reclaim your voice, to stop chasing validation, to remember your worth. And the more painful the dynamic, the more urgent the lesson. These are the karmic accelerators, the spiritual mirrors. And yes, they might leave scars, but they also leave wisdom. If you are willing to look beyond the pain, you will see it was never just about the other person. It was always about what they activated in you. That is the paradox. The ones who hurt you the most might also be the ones your soul chose with the most love. Not romantic love, but soul love. The kind of love that is not afraid of discomfort. The kind of love that agrees to play the villain in this lifetime, just to help you wake up. And from the soul's perspective, that is an act of immense courage. Because to be the trigger in someone else's story is no light role. It carries weight, it carries karma, but it also carries the potential for transformation. This does not mean you should excuse abuse or accept mistreatment. It does not mean you should stay in toxic dynamics because you think they are spiritual. Soul contracts are not cages. They are catalysts. And once the lesson has been integrated, the contract can be released with clarity, with grace, with a deeper understanding of why it unfolded the way it did. There is a reason some people are hard to forget, even when you know they were not good for you. It is not weakness. It is the soul recognizing that something real happened, something unfinished or something sacred buried inside the pain. You are not supposed to carry the suffering forever, but you are supposed to mine it for wisdom. That is how the contract completes. Not when they apologize, not when you get closure, but when you find the meaning inside the madness, when you stop asking, why did they hurt me? And start asking, what did this teach me about myself? It is easy to understand soul contracts that feel beautiful. The ones that uplift you, encourage you, and remind you of your light. But the ones that bring you to your knees, those are harder to accept. And yet, they often shape you the most, because pain breaks the shell of identity, allowing the soul to stretch and expand. In those moments of heartbreak, loss, and betrayal, you are being invited to meet yourself more honestly than ever before. You may not recognize the gift at first. It may take years, but eventually you will see it. The version of you that emerged from that connection, the one who learned to speak, to walk away, to choose peace over chaos, that version would not exist without the fire. And when you understand that, something shifts. You no longer hate them. You no longer need to, because the story has served its purpose. The contract has done its job. Some people come into your life to show you what love is. Others come to show you what love is not, so you can finally stop settling for less than you deserve. And both are teachers. both are sacred. Both were chosen by you. There are people who walk into your life not when you are looking, but when you are ready. Not ready in the way your mind understands it, but in the way your soul has been quietly preparing behind the scenes. These are the ones who do not just enter your world, they shift it. They accelerate your evolution in ways that feel jarring, exhilarating, or even terrifying. They challenge the way you see yourself. They question your assumptions. They push you to your edge. And when you look back, you realize that everything started to change the moment they showed up. This is another sign of a soul contract in motion. Someone arriving at the exact moment your soul is ready to grow. Even if the rest of you is still catching up, it is rarely comfortable. In fact, it often begins with resistance. You meet them, and something about the connection feels too intense, too exposing. You cannot hide from yourself around them. Your coping mechanisms do not work the way they usually do. Your distractions fall flat. And deep down, you know they are not here to play a background role in your story. They are here to activate something dormant inside you. You might feel this in the way conversations with them bypass surface-level topics and go straight to the heart of things. They see parts of you that most people miss. They ask questions that stay with you long after the conversation ends. You feel safe and uncomfortable at the same time. Safe enough to be honest. Uncomfortable enough to realize how much you have been avoiding. And that is exactly what soul contracts do when the time is right. They remove your excuses. They show you where you have been playing small. They illuminate the gap between who you are and who you are meant to become. It is not about them fixing you or leading you. They are not a guru. And this is not about dependency. It is about reflection. They mirror back your potential in ways you cannot unsee. And in their presence, you start to remember who you really are underneath the masks you have worn to survive. That remembering can feel like falling apart, but it is actually the beginning of integration because you cannot grow into your next chapter while clinging to the outdated version of yourself. What is even more profound is how often these people show up during life transitions. A job loss, a breakup, a relocation, a health scare. Right when the ground beneath you is shifting, they appear. Not to save you, but to spark something that had been waiting for the right conditions to ignite. It is not a coincidence. It is timing written into your soul's blueprint. There is also something magnetic about the way they appear. Maybe you were not even supposed to be at the event where you met. Maybe you almost cancelled that trip or decided at the last minute to message them. And yet, everything aligned. These moments defy planning. They are orchestrated beyond logic, because when a soul contract is due, the universe makes it happen subtly, perfectly, often without warning. Sometimes they challenge you by supporting you in ways you have never experienced. They see your brilliance when you are still buried in self-doubt. They believe in your potential with a conviction that makes you uncomfortable because you have not claimed it yet. Their presence alone becomes a catalyst for expansion. And at first, you might resist it. You might push them away or test their patience. But that is part of the process. Growth does not happen in comfort zones. It happens in the stretch. Other times, they challenge you by confronting your ego. They call out your patterns. They hold you accountable. They reflect your shadows in a way that feels unfair, until you realize they are right. Not because they are trying to hurt you, but because their soul is playing the role it agreed to play, the mirror. The mirror does not lie. And while the ego resists the reflection, the soul craves it. Because deep down, you know you did not come here to stay the same. There is something else too. These relationships do not always last. Some are intense and temporary, like a flash of lightning that burns something away so the real can emerge. Others stay, evolving as you do, serving as long-term allies in your journey. Duration is not the point, impact is. And whether they are here for a season or a lifetime, their arrival marks a turning point. You can feel it. Before them, you were one person. After them, you are someone else more aware, more awake, more aligned. That shift is the signature of a soul contract. And while you may not always be grateful in the moment, someday you will be. You will look back and realize that their presence was the beginning of something sacred, your transformation. Some relationships carry a weight that cannot be explained by time. You have not known them for long, but it feels like forever. Or maybe you have been with them for years, and yet there is still something unresolved between you, something ancient that words cannot quite reach. It is not just the emotional intensity. It is the eerie sense that this is not your first meeting. Like you have danced this same dance before in another place, in another body, under another name. These are the connections that stretch across lifetimes, where the soul contract you are fulfilling did not begin in this life, and will not necessarily end in it either. When a soul contract spans multiple incarnations, it carries karmic momentum. It brings with it stories that have not been completed, energies that have not been balanced, love that was not fully expressed, or lessons that were left unlearned. This is why some dynamics feel larger than life, why you are drawn to someone against all logic, why you forgive things you swore you would not, why you stay longer than you should, or leave even when everything looks perfect on the surface. The soul remembers what the mind forgets, and it is the soul that is steering these interactions, not your conscious plans. You might feel this through recurring patterns. No matter what you do, you end up in the same emotional cycle with the same person or with different people who feel strangely similar. It is not just bad luck. It is a loop calling out to be completed. When we ignore these patterns, they repeat. When we become aware of them, we gain the power to resolve them. That is the deeper purpose of long-range soul contracts, to bring the unresolved to light so it can finally be seen, felt, and released. Sometimes you meet someone and there is no emotional chaos at all. Instead, there is peace, a calm that defies the noise of the world, as if by their very presence, you are reminded of who you were before life hardened you. These connections are no less profound. In fact, they may be the result of many lifetimes of work between you, where the karma has already been balanced. And what remains is simply recognition. These are the soul allies, the ones who walk beside you, not to test or trigger you, but to hold space for your expansion. They may have been your parent in a past life, or your child, or someone who helped you through something sacred and painful. Now they are here again, not as a lesson, but as a reminder. There are also connections that feel mission-driven. You meet someone, and it is not just about chemistry or comfort. It is about purpose. Your paths intertwine with a sense of urgency. You feel like you are meant to do something together. Create, teach, build, awaken. It is not always clear what the mission is, but you feel it humming beneath the surface, guiding your choices, syncing your timing. These soul contracts are often born from shared commitments made before this life began. A promise to return and serve. A vow to rise together when the time is right. That kind of connection does not always feel romantic. In fact, it often bypasses traditional definitions entirely. There is a sacredness to it that does not need labels. You just know. We are here for something bigger than ourselves. And whether you succeed in the mission or not, the attempt itself is part of the contract. The willingness to meet, to try, to remember. Those moments are coded with meaning. You may also notice unusual signs when you are with someone from a multi-lifetime contract. Intense dreams, shared visions, flashbacks that do not belong to this life, or moments of time distortion. When minutes feel like hours, or days feel like seconds. These are not delusions. They are echoes. Residual energy from experiences your souls have already shared. You are not imagining it. You are remembering it. Understanding that a relationship stretches beyond this life does not always make it easier, but it does make it more sacred. It shifts your perspective. You stop needing to win, to control, to define. You begin to approach the connection with reverence, even when it hurts, even when it ends, because you know the story is bigger than what you see. And sometimes the greatest love is letting go with grace, trusting that the contract has served its purpose for now. This does not mean it is over forever. Some souls find each other again and again in new forms and new timelines, and every time they do, they pick up where they left off. Not always in romance, sometimes in mentorship, sometimes in healing, sometimes simply in being a presence that makes the other feel less alone in this world. So when you meet someone, and it feels bigger than this lifetime, trust it. Do not rush to explain it. Just honor it, because that feeling is real. That contract is active, and it might just be one piece of a story your soul has been writing for centuries. There are people you try to walk away from, but somehow they always find a way back in. No matter how far you move, how much time passes, how firmly you close the door, there they are again. A message, a song, a chance encounter in the last place you would expect. You tell yourself it is a coincidence, that life is just unpredictable. But deep down, something else is whispering. This is not over yet, and maybe it was never meant to be. This is one of the clearest and strangest signs that you are in an active soul contract. The universe keeps putting you in each other's paths. It is as if life is conspiring to ensure you meet again and again until something clicks into place. These recurring connections can feel like being caught in a loop you did not sign up for yet, cannot seem to exit. You drift apart, you reconnect. Sometimes the roles reverse. The dynamic shifts, but the pull remains. Not always romantic, not always welcome, but undeniably potent. It might start with small signs, dreams of them, after long periods of silence, a random conversation where their name comes up, an old photo resurfacing just when you were beginning to forget. Then it gets stranger. You bump into them in a city neither of you lives in. You find out you have been working 2 floors apart without realizing it. You try to delete them from your mind, and somehow they show up in your world the very next day. These are not accidents. They are echoes of a contract still unfolding. The universe is not cruel. It does not force people into your life without purpose, but it is persistent. When a soul contract has work left to do, the universe will send reminders, nudges, doors you thought were closed, creaking open just enough to tempt your curiosity. It is not always because you are meant to be together in the traditional sense. Sometimes it is because you are meant to finish something, an apology, never spoken, a lesson never claimed, a pattern that keeps repeating until it is finally broken. It is also possible that you keep coming back into each other's orbit because your growth is tied to theirs. Not in a codependent way, but in a catalytic way. You are each other's mirrors, each other's tests. And until the mirror is fully seen or the test is passed, life will keep placing you face to face. It is not punishment. It is evolution. But here is what most people miss. Just because the universe keeps reconnecting you does not mean you have to stay. Recognition does not require attachment. Soul contracts are not life sentences. They are agreements, and once the agreement is fulfilled, you are free to let go. What keeps many people stuck is mistaking repetition for destiny. They think the recurring presence means the relationship must continue. But often, it is the opposite. The repetition is there to make sure you do not leave the lesson incomplete. Once the lesson truly lands, the contract dissolves, and the reconnection loses its charge. Still, it is not always about closure. Some recurring soul connections are meant to walk with you longer, but they cannot do that until both of you evolve. That is why you keep returning to each other at different stages. The timing never quite works until both of you are aligned enough to hold the connection consciously, not from need, but from choice. And if that time never comes, it does not mean the connection was meaningless. It means it was sacred, even in its incompleteness. Some souls are like stars orbiting in the same sky, rarely aligned, but always in view. Their presence shifts your tide even when they are not close. And when life aligns just right, those orbits meet for a moment, for a season, for a transformation. The key is to learn to listen to the why, without clinging to the when. So if someone keeps reappearing in your life, stop asking what they want from you. Start asking what the connection wants for you. What is it asking you to face? What part of yourself is activated around them? What cycle are you being called to break? The soul speaks in patterns, and these recurring crossings are its way of saying, do not look away. Not yet. There is something here, something unfinished, something alive. And once you see it clearly, without projection, without fear, you will know exactly what to do. Maybe you will walk away for good. Maybe you will walk back in with eyes wide open. Either way, it will be on your terms. Not because fate dragged you back, but because you finally understood what was always waiting to be seen. The moment you realize you are in a soul contract, everything changes. Not because the situation shifts overnight, but because you do. The questions stop being, "Why is this happening to me?" and start becoming, "What am I meant to learn here?" That shift, subtle but seismic, marks the beginning of spiritual sovereignty. You stop reacting blindly. You start witnessing. You begin to understand that not all pain is punishment. Some of it is sacred choreography. And in that awareness, you begin the process of setting yourself free. Recognizing a soul contract does not require psychic powers or cosmic visions. It requires honesty. It asks you to look at the patterns that keep repeating, the people you cannot seem to let go of, the wounds that come up again and again, no matter how many new faces or fresh starts you try to apply over them. If something keeps circling back, it is not because you are broken. It is because the lesson is not done. The contract is still active. Completion does not mean perfection. It means integration. Learning the thing you came here to learn, so you no longer need the trigger to teach it to you. That might look like finally setting a boundary with someone you have always let walk over you. It might mean forgiving someone, not to let them off the hook, but to unhook yourself from the energetic entanglement. It might even mean recognizing that someone was never meant to stay, but to show you the parts of yourself you had long abandoned. One of the most powerful tools in recognizing and completing soul contracts is reflection. Not just thinking, but soul-level reflection. Sit with the emotions they bring up. Journal the patterns. Pay attention to your body's signals when you are around certain people. Energy does not lie. If your nervous system flares, if your heart tightens or your gut sinks, there is information in that. Soul contracts often live in the body before they reach the mind. Learning to listen to those signals is part of the remembering. Another tool is intention. You do not have to know the full history of your soul's journey to bring clarity to your current path. Simply setting the intention to understand the deeper purpose of a relationship opens the doorway. Ask your higher self. Ask in meditation. Ask in your dreams. The answers may not be immediate, but they come. Sometimes through symbols, sometimes through synchronicities, sometimes through sudden insights that hit you in the middle of the most ordinary moment. It is also important to recognize when a contract is complete. Not all spiritual relationships are meant to be permanent. Some are here to break you open. And once you have received what they came to give, it is time to release them with grace. Holding on beyond the expiration of a contract creates suffering. The soul speaks through intuition. And if your inner voice is whispering, "It's time," trust that completion is not failure, it is fulfillment. Cutting cords does not mean cutting people out with bitterness or anger. It means energetically releasing the dependency, the entanglement, the karmic loop. You can still love someone and let them go. You can honor the role they played in your life without needing to carry the relationship forward. Releasing a contract does not make the connection any less sacred. In fact, it is the highest form of love to say, "We have served each other well. Now, we walk new paths." When you begin to live from this awareness, relationships stop being chaos. They become classrooms. Every connection becomes a mirror, an activation, a doorway. You stop personalizing every wound and start understanding that most pain is just unintegrated growth. You begin to thank the challenges, not because you enjoy suffering, but because you see the strength they forged in you. And that is the freedom soul contracts can lead to. Not a life without pain, but a life where pain no longer owns you. A life where you are not just reacting to the world around you, but consciously participating in the evolution of your soul. It does not mean you become emotionally detached. It means you become emotionally awake, present, able to discern what is yours to carry and what is ready to be put down. The soul does not demand perfection. It asks for presence, willingness, awareness. When you meet others from that space, not trying to complete yourself through them, but recognizing the sacred exchange that is unfolding, you transform every relationship you touch. You begin to walk your path not with fear, but with trust, not with resentment, but with reverence, because now you see it, the hidden architecture behind your experiences, the meaning in the mess, the purpose inside the pain. You see the contract. And in seeing it, you hold the power to complete it. There is a moment, quiet and unmistakable, when you stop feeling like life is something that just happens to you and start sensing that everything has meaning. The people you loved, the ones who hurt you, the ones you never got to keep, they were not random. They were chapters in a story your soul chose to live, a masterpiece written across lifetimes. And while you might not remember signing the contract, every twist in your path, every tear, every breakthrough has been leading you somewhere far more sacred than survival. It has been leading you back to yourself. When you stop seeing relationships as wins or losses and start seeing them as soul-designed experiences, something extraordinary happens. You stop chasing closure and start choosing clarity. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What am I becoming because of this?" That is what soul contracts do. They refine you. They break the version of you that was never real to begin with, and they reveal something deeper. The self that is not shaped by approval or fear, but by truth. The self that remembers its own divinity. You were never meant to get through life untouched. You were meant to be shaped, sharpened, opened. The wounds you carry are not proof of failure. They are evidence of evolution. And the people who caused them, whether they were lovers, friends, strangers, or family, were part of the plan. Some played roles you would rather forget. Some awakened a love in you that you never knew you had. But all of them, in some way, pushed you toward growth. And now, standing here, aware of what is behind the veil, you get to choose differently. You get to walk through the world with your eyes wide open. You can stop living on autopilot. You can stop seeking validation from the very structures that taught you to forget who you are. Because now you remember, you are not just a body trying to survive. You are a soul fulfilling a purpose. That is the beauty of awakening. It does not mean the pain stops, but it does mean the confusion fades. You see the pattern. You feel the timing. You trust the unfolding, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because now you do not see life as something random. You see it as something sacred. Each encounter a message, each relationship a mirror, each heartbreak a redirection. And suddenly, even the most difficult moments begin to feel like a kind of grace. The world does not want you to think this way. It wants you busy, distracted, reactive. Because an awakened soul cannot be controlled. A conscious soul does not obey blindly, and a person who understands the blueprint of their own life cannot be manipulated by fear. That is why awareness is the greatest rebellion. Not loud, not dramatic, just unshakable, quiet power. And if you have come this far, if you have listened, felt, and remembered, then you are ready to live differently, to move from reaction to intention, to release contracts that no longer serve you, and honor the ones that still do. You are ready to stop asking life to be easy and start asking it to be honest. Because honesty awakens, honesty heals. And when you walk through the world in truth, you will attract people who see you not for who you pretend to be, but for who you have always been. This is not about perfection, it never was. This is about choosing to participate in your evolution with open eyes and a willing heart. To love without attachment, to release without bitterness, to trust that your soul knew exactly what it was doing when it chose this path. Because the truth is, there are no wrong turns, only chapters. Some long, some short, some filled with ecstasy, others with fire, but all part of the same story. A story only you could live.